Did you know that a few words spoken in frustration can literally stay in a child's mind for years? It's wild, but it's true. Welcome to this explainer on Next Gen Parenting. If you're looking for practical parenting tips and child psychology insights, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to discover how everyday words can deeply shape a child's confidence, emotional health, and future relationships.
As parents, we spend so much time obsessing over what we should be teaching our kids, right? But honestly, sometimes what we should absolutely never say is just as important. Let's dive into why shifting our perspective on our everyday language matters so much.
So today, we're going to explore some super common phrases that great parents intentionally avoid. And of course, we'll give you practical, psychology-backed alternatives to use instead. The whole goal here is proactive, positive communication to build that real, lasting trust and connection with your kids.
Okay, consider this for a second. A study out of the National University of Singapore found that 61% of children with strict, authoritarian fathers actually cheated on a test. 61%. That proves that harsh parenting, which usually involves harsh words and intense punishments, doesn't magically create perfect behavior. Instead, it actually promotes dishonesty and intense self-criticism. Kids basically learn to lie just to avoid getting in trouble.
All right, let's jump into our first theme, the comparison trap, and why comparing our kids seriously damages their self-esteem.
A really common trap we fall into is asking, why can't you be like your brother or sister? Look, comparison is literally one of the fastest ways to crush a kid's self-esteem. When they hear this, they aren't motivated, they just internalize, I'm not good enough. It breeds resentment and sibling rivalry. So instead of that, we need to treat each child as a completely unique individual. Say this instead, let's focus on your own progress. Focus on their specific journey.
Moving on to theme number 2, invalidating big emotions. Here, we're looking at teaching emotional awareness instead of emotional suppression.
Telling a kid to stop crying is incredibly common, right? We've all probably heard it or said it. But crying is a completely natural emotional response. Demanding they just turn it off teaches them to shove their feelings down rather than actually understand them. So say this instead. I can see you're upset. Tell me what happened. This is a massive shift. It validates them and teaches essential emotional awareness.
And similarly, when a kid falls down or gets upset, our knee-jerk reaction is often to say, "Oh, you're fine." But when we do that, we unintentionally dismiss their experience. I mean, to them, they are definitely not fine in that moment. Instead, try saying something like, "That seems really difficult for you right now." Validating their feelings like this makes them feel deeply understood and, more importantly, safe.
Along those exact same lines, telling a kid, don't be scared, completely denies their reality. Fear is very, very real to a child, even if we as adults know the situation isn't actually dangerous. So instead of denying it, just offer your presence. Try saying, it's okay to feel scared. I'm right here with you. This actually builds genuine courage through your support rather than just dismissing their feelings entirely.
Okay, let's dive into our third theme, attacking character, not behavior. Let's look at how we can correct actions without creating unnecessary shame.
So the crucial concept here is adopting what psychologists call the most generous interpretation. What this means is framing a child's misbehavior not as intentional defiance or them trying to be mean, but simply as a lack of emotional regulation. Basically, assume they aren't trying to give you a hard time, they're just having a hard time.
Keeping that in mind, we really want to avoid labeling them with phrases like, "You're so lazy." When we use labels, children start believing it's their permanent identity. They think, well, maybe I really am lazy. Great parents correct the specific behavior without attacking the core character. So say this instead. Let's figure out how to get started. You're helping them take that first, difficult step together.
Also, you really got to watch out for those broad brush phrases like "you never listen" or "you always make mistakes." Think about it. These statements are rarely 100% true and they instantly make kids super defensive. Focus instead on the specific skill you want to improve. Say, let's work on listening more carefully. See? It's collaborative, not accusatory.
Another really heavy phrase to avoid is "I'm disappointed in you." Kids deeply, deeply value your approval. Repeatedly using disappointment-based language just piles on a heavy burden of shame. You always want to separate the bad choice from the child themselves. Try saying this instead. That choice wasn't a good one, but we can learn from it. It completely changes the dynamic.
Let's shift gears to theme number 4, demanding blind obedience. We're talking about guiding instead of controlling. Come on, we have all used the classic
because I said so. But constantly demanding blind obedience shuts down communication completely. It basically tells your kid their understanding doesn't matter. Now, obviously, you won't always have time for a massive lecture, but briefly explaining the why builds real understanding and critical thinking. Say this instead. Here's why this rule is important.
To avoid putting unnecessary pressure on our kids and to really encourage them to learn from their mistakes, we need to actively foster a growth mindset. This is simply the belief that abilities and intelligence aren't just fixed at birth, they can be developed through dedication and hard work.
Which brings us to a surprisingly common trap. Saying, "You're the smart one." I know, it sounds incredibly positive, right? But it can actually create immense pressure. Kids might start avoiding challenges entirely because they're terrified of failing and losing that smart label. Say this instead. "You worked really hard." You're praising their effort rather than a fixed trait.
And finally, for this section, avoid saying, "I do everything for you." Look, this usually slips out in a moment of pure exhaustion and frustration. But it honestly just creates guilt in your child rather than the responsibility you're actually looking for. Instead of making them feel like a burden, invite their cooperation. Say, "Let's work together on this." It teaches genuine responsibility without all that resentment.
All right, let's move to our final theme, the power of positive phrasing. Let's look at what great parents say more often.
Think of this as your ultimate positive parenting toolkit. Using these rapid-fire phrases on a regular basis really reinforces your role as their supportive guide. Say "I love you" often. Remind them, "I'm proud of your effort." Empower them by asking, "What do you think?" and reassure them with, "It's okay to make mistakes." And honestly, most importantly, show them you care by simply saying, "I'm listening."
Now here is a really powerful parenting reminder to take to heart. Literally, no parent is perfect. Every single parent on earth says things they later regret in the heat of the moment. The goal here is absolutely not perfection. The goal is simply awareness. Making small, mindful changes in our everyday language can create a massive positive difference in how our kids see themselves and the world around them.
The words we use today often become our children's inner voice tomorrow, so choose words that encourage growth, resiliency, confidence, and real connection. Because as you can see, great parenting isn't about saying the perfect thing every time. It's about speaking with love, respect, and intention.
So, I'd really love to know, which phrase surprised you the most? Have you ever caught yourself saying one of these? And which alternative are you going to try first? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. If you found this explainer helpful, definitely subscribe to Next Gen Parenting for more practical tips and child psychology insights. Together, let's raise confident, emotionally healthy, and happy children. Catch you next time.